So for me, the best way to learn is to teach something. So today we're going to learn about clouds. So there's 4 different types of clouds, 4 different families. There's the stratus ones. So those are like the really thin, like kind of solid ones that you see in the sky. They don't have any vertical development, and it's like constant light rain. And then cirrus clouds they're super high up, like 16,000 to 24,000 feet. These have wispy, thin look to them, and they don't have very much moisture coming out of them. Cumulus are the ones that are like this today. So these are cumulus clouds. They appear in the summertime a lot. They have unstable atmosphere in them, turbulence below and above them, and a possibility for them to like grow into thunderstorms, and they have a high chance of later becoming cumulonimbus clouds, which is what create thunderstorms with lightning, rain, snow, all that stuff. The main difference between cumulus and cumulonimbus clouds is just adding nimbus to it. So nimbus means rain. So if you have a towering cumulus cloud, if there's a possibility or a very strong development of rain, then they'll add nimbus to it, and that turns into a cumulonimbus cloud, and there's a possibility for that to turn into a thunderstorm. And the last type of cloud that we have is called virga. These are really pretty clouds. They're like when you drive down like through a prairie and you see it's like kind of coming down in rain showers, and there's like a layer of clouds on top, and like it looks like it's dripping clouds underneath in like a shower formation. That's called a virga cloud, but it can be very dangerous because those types of clouds create downdrafts and updrafts, which can, if you're flying above or below them, which can create turbulence, knock you way up, way down, mess with your airspeed, your ground speed, and it can be potentially very harmful. The reason that downdrafts are so bad is they can create horizontal wind shear and vertical wind shear. So wind shear is when the wind has a significant change in direction and speed. So like say you're flying with a tailwind along, this is your plane right here in my hand. You're flying with a tailwind, you're going like 100 knots over the ground, and suddenly from this area your wind shifts to being from this area to be a headwind, and you lose like 60 knots of ground speed. You're gonna suddenly be going really, really slow, right? So it can be difficult to fly in wind shear. It can be very dangerous, especially if you're coming into land and you're on final and you're having a very strong headwind and it shifts to a tailwind. That'll mess with all your speeds and you'll start going towards the ground very, very fast. So how are clouds formed? Well, clouds are formed by when moist air rises, it expands and cools as it's carried upward on like vertical air currents. So once the cooling air reaches a certain temperature, the molecules are saturated so much that condensation or the clouds form. So, and then when the dew point and the temperature gets so close, and it creates visible moisture, which could be clouds, it could be rain, it could be snow, it could be hail, something like that. That's called visible moisture. So the temperature level that it reaches is called the dew point. And it varies, depends on the atmosphere, the temperature, the wind, the sun. It can depend on all of those forces. But once it reaches that point, it will condense into clouds. And if it goes beyond the dew point to where the clouds are oversaturated with moisture and they can't hold it anymore, then that's when it will rain or snow or have ice. And this part is important for especially instrument rating pilots or pilots working on their instrument rating. There's 3 different colors of clouds. The first one is white, so these are the thinnest color of cloud and they just scatter the sunlight. So light will hit them and they'll just scatter it. So these are very, very thin clouds. Gray clouds mean that sunlight is passing through, but it's scattered. The cloud is less than 3,000 feet thick. And then dark gray clouds are so thick that they block nearly all the sunlight from passing through. So if you look up and you see a super dark gray cloud and it looks like almost black, they're more than 3,000 feet thick. So you don't want to fly anywhere near those, even if you have your instrument rating. And then when you're in pilot training, you're going to start reading something called METARs or TAFs. And those are just basically the weather forecast or the weather at that moment for a certain area. Sometimes it's an airport, sometimes it's an aerodrome. It can be a certain VOR if they have weather measuring capabilities. But there's different types of cloud cover. So clear is our first one. That means no clouds in the area. very clear, very easy to see. Few clouds are clouds covering an eighth to a fourth of the sky, so like a quarter of the sky covered. It's pretty easy to fly around them, maneuver, and they're usually pretty high. Scattered clouds are clouds that cover 3/8 to a half of the sky. So that's like what you see here is gonna be either few, scattered, or broken. But it depends, because see up there's no clouds, but down here there's a lot. And then broken clouds are clouds that cover 5/8 to 7/8 of the sky, so almost the whole sky is covered with clouds, and there just might be a little bit of blue poking through them. And then overcast is clouds covering the whole entire sky. So for private pilot students, your personal minimum should be to fly when clouds are obviously when you can meet your requirements in the airspace you're flying. But your personal minimums should be to fly when there's less than scattered clouds. Now don't take what I'm saying for gospel. I'm just working on my ground instructor rating, so I'm not an expert by any means. So please don't take what I say and run with it and tell your instructor that you found out from somebody on the internet. But I hope this helped, and hope to see you guys in the sky.